Do you guys remember Scribblenauts? That weird little game on the DS where you could create anything. I used to play this game all the time as a kid, but as I was recently reminiscing on this game, a question arose in my mind. The game encourages you to be creative and bring anything you want to life in order to solve a variety of puzzles. But what if we restricted that to as few things as we could? How few words do we actually need to finish Scribblenauts? Before we get into this challenge, I want to lay out a few ground rules. First and foremost, every unique object that we summon to complete a level is counted towards our total object counter. We can reuse the same item as many times as we want. We're not going for minimum summons, we're going for minimum types of summons. This also means that any items that spawn in levels are fair game. Second, I'm going to be running this game in accordance to the any% rules on speedrun.com. in which the run ends upon completing either 10-11 action or 10-11 puzzle. This is mainly because I don't think this challenge is as interesting when doing 100%, as a lot of the puzzles just require you to spawn really specific items. The more items we have access to because of being forced to spawn them, the less interesting the game will become later on, because rather than being forced to work with a limited toolset in unconventional ways, we will just have an abundance of options open to us. Third, I'm not allowed to replay levels. Scribblenauts' progression system is a bit strange since everything unlocks based on points. You don't even have to go to World 2 if you have enough points to buy World 3. Replaying levels still rewards you with points, which means if you watch any Scribblenauts any% speedrun, you'll notice that a lot of it is grinding the same level for points until they can afford the final world. This would make for a not very interesting challenge run, since I would never be forced to encounter any new puzzles or find any different solutions. I could just coast off the items I chose to beat the first level until I grind enough points for World 10. So I'm not going to replay any levels at all. If I ever get to the point where there are no more levels for me to complete, I will just be forced to add another object. The fourth rule... Oh wait, this one's for you. It says that you must like and subscribe to the channel for more awesome content. Doing so will help me grow and hopefully help me reach 10,000 subscribers before my 1-year anniversary on YouTube. This is my favorite rule. Before we do start, I want to give a quick shout out to Soap Agent. He is the Scribblenauts world record holder, and he helped me out by answering a ton of questions and showing me a lot of the cool tricks I will now be showing you. And that's basically it. I figured the best way to start with this challenge was just to get a run under my belt with my gut intuitions. Very importantly, I named this file Gun, because, well, even my file name is technically a word, and the last thing I wanted was people hitting me with the actually in the comments about this. At the beginning of Scribblenauts, you are forced to play 11 tutorial levels. This is important because that means I can't do what I do best and avoid all of my problems just yet. Any level that requires us to summon here must be completed, which means we have to find objects that we'll want to use for the rest of the run and try to consolidate them to as few as we can. Luckily, most of the levels in the tutorial don't actually require you to summon anything. They're just teaching you the mechanics of how to interact with the world. There's actually only 3 levels that require a summon in the tutorial. The first one just makes you summon anything. It doesn't really matter what, so we can make this work with the next 2. The next level forces you to summon any food, and the level after requires some way to get vertical movement. So while I don't think it's a secret that we're gonna be summoning a gun at some point, it is clearly not time for that yet. A gun is both not food and does not help us with movement at all. This means we ideally need some sort of food that can somehow give us vertical mobility. After scrolling through the Scribblenauts dictionary and testing out a bunch of foods, I came across the perfect solution: the wedding cake. It turns out a lot of foods cannot be stood on in this game. Maybe I missed one, but I found the wedding cake, and I love my wedding cake. The chef loves it, my feet love it. It can easily carry us to the end of the tutorial. Once we get to World 1 though, we still aren't completely free to try any puzzles we want. Let's actually talk a bit about this. When you start a world, you have 2 levels initially unlocked. Level 1 of the puzzle section and level 1 of the action section. Upon beating level 1 of any section, you unlock levels 2 to 4 of that same section. Upon beating one of those, you get 5 to 7, and upon beating one of those, you get 8 through 11. Unlocking different worlds is only really a matter of gaining allers, and allers are only gained by finishing levels. This means that we need to choose our worlds carefully, as wasting our allers on worlds where we can't even get past the first levels will pretty much kill the run. The final world we're trying to reach costs 25,000 allers, so we'll have to find a balance by buying worlds that can give us a net aller profit. Luckily, 1-1 only requires us to spawn 2 items, and they must be items that are useful to 2 of these 4 people. We spawn in the wedding cake for the chef, and our titular gun for the cop. At this point, I want to try to take these 2 items as far as I can. With the gun, I'll be able to fight and use projectiles, while the wedding cake is both food and a solid object. So that's exactly what I did. 1-2 wants us to catch a butterfly, which is no problem with the help of a wedding cake. 1-3 wants us to fly a further distance than this kid off the ramp. It might be possible with a crazy wedding cake stack, but that kind of thing is not the most reliable, so we'll skip it for now. 1-4 wants us to spawn 3 farm animals, and believe it or not, we can't bribe him with wedding cakes. Or guns. 1-5 wants us to refresh this man in the desert, and somehow getting into a food coma from eating so much cake is not refreshing. Finally, we get back on track with 1-6. We have to return this cat to its owner. While you might think this is an easy spawn 1 wedding cake and be done with the level, we do have to do some quick platforming because this little demon will try to eat any cakes we spawn. It's doable, but a little annoying. 1-7 wants us to help this lumberjack cut down a tree, and apparently you can't cut a tree with a gun. Who knew? 1-8 is fully completable without any summons, since you can just pick up all the trash. 1-9 pisses me off, because this is like one of those classic carnival games, right? But the rules specifically say, no guns and no cheating. And sure, maybe I deserve to fail for pulling out a gun, but someone please tell me how this is not cheating. 1-10 has you protecting this dude's sandwich from ants, and it actually just doesn't require you to do anything but hold the sandwich and run away. 1-11 wants us to collect all these flowers, and while we might be able to make a wedding cake stack to get to the top one, we actually can't kill this dangerous fish because bullets don't work underwater for some reason. This is the level we can come back to if we end up needing to add one more item. When we start the action levels, 1-1 just requires a quick wedding cake jump. I said quick. Yeah, let me address the elephant in the room. I'm playing the original version of Scribblenauts, which only has touchscreen controls. So precise stuff like landing on a wedding cake can actually be pretty difficult. 1-2 needs us to activate these buttons to reach a switch, which we can do quite gracefully with 2 wedding cakes. 1-3 gives us a lot of options, but we actually don't have the tools to use any of them. Tunneling through would require some sort of digging item, going under would require diving gear, and going above would require vertical mobility. And I'm not desperate enough at this point to start cake laddering. 1-4 wants us to hit a sideways button, which a wedding cake can do pretty easily. 1-5, not happening. Even if we could cake ladder up there, we don't really have any way to get the star out of this tight space. 1-6 is just not happening with cakes. 1-7 has this tornado that we can't shoot and can't walk through. 1-8 is just not gonna happen. 1-9 has us fighting bears. We have guns, so we can get it done. In 1-10, hitting this tripwire will drop the star to an inaccessible area, and shooting our problems has been surprisingly ineffective so far. Now, 1-11, you see the star up there? If we hit this button, it will drop down. Now this seems impossible. Sure, we can hit the button with a wedding cake, but then it immediately dies on the spike. Well, believe it or not, you can actually use another wedding cake here. See, for some reason, it seems like the top of the spike does not have a hitbox. If the cake touches either side, it disappears instantly. but if you balance it perfectly on top, it will stay. This means if we get a lucky bounce, we can plinko the star down to the water below. We just have to make sure to be there preemptively, because if we're too late, it will sink and we'll be unable to retrieve it. After a lot of attempts, I was able to get this one as well. Our showing in World 1 netted us $9,937, which was more than enough to get us to our next destination. I chose World 3. I ended up deciding to skip World 2 because on my routing file, I realized that 2 items was probably not going to cut it. While we can complete a decent amount of levels with Wedding Cake and Gun, 3-1 shows that we will probably need to introduce one more item. Sure, we can maneuver past the icy obstacles just fine, but we have no way to retrieve this starite. Other worlds lead us to similar roadblocks, so I believe it is time to introduce you to the rope. I love this janky piece of shit. What makes the rope really strong for a challenge like this is just how versatile it is. You can attach it to any item, and yes, I mean any item. You can climb it for height, you can pull things with it. It's awesome. Just to show you some of the power of the rope real quick, remember this level with the tornado? By attaching the rope to the starite, we can have it slide down the hill, get stuck in the tornado, and then by grabbing the rope, we can... Oops. By grabbing the rope, we can get really lucky and have it fling into us. Same with this level, we can just attach the rope to this tree to get up, and this one where we can attach the rope to the lever. It makes pretty much any level where we rely on cake platforming much easier. Back to 3-1, the rope is the perfect length to allow us to grab the frozen starite from under the alcove. Then we can flip it onto this platform and shoot it to free it. 3-2 has the speedrun strat where you can just run off into the lava to get the star before it burns. So this should be an easy clear, but I could not get this to work no matter how many times I tried. Most speedruns of this game play on the Scribblenauts collection version that has button controls, which would probably make it a lot easier as you probably only just have to hold right. But with the touchscreen, Maxwell just keeps jumping for no reason. Doesn't matter how far beneath him you are touching, the only way I could get him to consistently not jump is if I'm holding directly below him. But doing that while maintaining full speed after the tripwire is incredibly precise. I tried some other shenanigans here, but decided to only come back here if I really needed points. 3-3 looks a little precarious, but luckily with the use of Gun, we can clear all the obstacles. By using a wedding cake to slightly offset the falling boulder, we can easily clear this puzzle. 3-4 has these spike balls that are floating on our path to the starite. If we turn off the fans, we can actually use our ropes to tie them down, but this still leaves us with the issue of how to get to the other side. Luckily, there are also fans on the ceiling for some reason, which means that we can just tie 2 ropes to the ceiling to climb all the way to the top and slowly fall to the other side. 3-5 seems pretty impossible as we don't really have a way to get to both of these levers. 3-6 is completable by dangling a rope from the lever so that we can hit it, and then using a gun to break all of the ice. 3-7 is awesome. Good old rope, nothing beats that. 3-8 seemed impossible as it seems like rocks do not break to gun. And as much as I tried to finagle with the rope, I don't think I was really getting anywhere. 3-9 you have to hold right but also get lucky. In my practice runs, only Medusa would spawn, and she just stuns you, so while it is annoying, it is possible. I was kind of jump scared when I started my actual run and a dragon would spawn and just kill me. I don't know why this level has RNG like that, but regardless, just reload until you roll Medusa, I guess. 3-10 is probably possible, but looked annoying, so I skipped it. 3-11 might technically be possible for reasons we will discuss later, but also very janky and annoying. This brings us to 3-1 puzzle, where Santa wants something. I gave him a wedding cake, and that works. Congrats, Mrs. Claus, I guess. In my practice, I had thought 3-2 to be impossible because you need electricity to jumpstart this car. What I didn't think to try until my actual run was to connect this telephone pole to the car with a rope. Why did that work? Holy shit, this game is cool. 3-3 might be possible, but after a fish suffocated due to rope jank, I kinda just gave up on it. 3-4 is one of my dumbest levels in this whole route. There's a snowball fight going on, and the prompt is to return the favor. Well, the only item we have that could possibly return the favor for this mission is not ideal. Killing any of these kids will instantly fail the mission. But what if we didn't kill them? By hitting each one with only 1 or 2 bullets, they will all survive, and that will grant us the star rate. 3-5 tasks us with returning this lamb to the herd, but this wolf will eat it on sight, and guns are strictly prohibited. I tried drowning the wolf with a wedding cake anchor, but it didn't really seem to work out the way I'd hoped, and the lamb was very uncooperative on the rope. 3-6 requires a heat source, so that's not happening. Despite Maxwell's ability to pull an entire iceberg by himself, this penguin lacks the ability to stay on top of it in 3-9. 3-10 wants us to return this lamp to the guy at the start. We can use a gun to shoot this stalactite and a rope to cross the other gap. In 3-11, this lady is not getting to that hospital. I'm sorry, bud. This brings us to World 5, which should hopefully get us the exact amount of allers we need to unlock World 10. 5-1 puzzle requires us to help this guy off the island, and that prompt is incredibly literal. 5-2 tasks us with retrieving a chocolate bar from one of these vending machines that is guarded by this bully. Unfortunately, killing this bully will end the level, and if he locks onto you, there really isn't an easy way to get the chocolate before he kills you. It seems like this mission is a dud. But luckily, our rope has another trick up its sleeve. You know how we can attach a rope to anything? Well, if we attach a rope to the bully, the rope and the bully essentially become the same object. So if we try to store our rope inside of an object that acts like a container, I don't know, let's say a vending machine for example, it will take the bully with it. Using this trick, we aren't killing him, but he also will never be an issue for anyone ever again. This makes it very easy to get the chocolate and the starite. 5-3 wants us to grow flour, but I don't know how. 5-4 wants us to get this lady in the pool. It's kind of wonky, but we can get it done with a rope eventually. For some reason in 5-5, we don't even need to attach the rope to this whale, we can kind of just push it. The power scaling on Maxwell has got to be crazy. 5-6 tasks us with pitching to this baseball kid, and let's just say the type of projectile you send towards him matters. At this point, I kind of regret choosing gun. When I thought about this run, I thought it would be incredible for combat, and it being a projectile, but so many missions just outright ban it, or violence is not an acceptable answer. Let's just say that gun is the least useful member of this team. 5-7 requires some underwater stuff, which we can't do. 5-8 has us race this slow ass lady who we don't even need a summon to beat. 5-9 is my personal Sisyphus level. There's a bus in the water that we need to get out. Our only tool to really get this done is the rope, and while it kind of works, it also really doesn't. I eventually got it done in a completely normal fashion. I don't know, man, the rope is fucking strong. 5-10 requires us to transport this cargo underwater, so that's not happening, and 5-11 tasks us with getting this guy to land safely, which we can do by pulling him through the lightning with a rope. It actually does not matter if you get him struck a few times, you can tank lightning pretty effectively for some reason. 5-1 action wants us to stop this boat from delivering the star to the pirate. We're too slow to catch up without a vehicle, and too far away to shoot the driver. So it seems like we would be skipping this, but luckily there is one strange quirk about this level that lets us get through. For some reason, we can attach ropes to clouds. If we attach 2 ropes to this cloud, we can also attach the bottom to this starfish. And that creates a bit of a barrier that slows down the boat just enough for us to catch up and grab the starite. 5-2 requires some underwater stuff again, whatever, but 5-3 is pretty awesome. In this level, hitting this button will release the dynamite and the starite, which is not good. It is technically possible to hit this button with wedding cakes, but that does not solve the dynamite issue. At this point, you might have realized that the rope has become the undisputed GOAT of this run. First things first, we can attach a rope to this campfire to get here, and now the magic can happen with the help of a controversial trick I like to call rope gate. I don't know if this actually has a name, I just needed something to call it. Ropes interact a little strangely with gates. When you attach a rope to an object, it allows you to latch onto multiple points. Usually, if there's something blocking the rope from connecting those 2 points, like a wall, it will not let you attach the rope. But a gate is interesting because it is both an object and a wall. This means that if we attach a rope to an object on one side of the gate, and the other end of that rope to the opposite side of that gate, the game allows us to connect them as we would any other 2 objects. It doesn't act like a solid wall would. This allows the object that is attached to the gate to phase through to the other side, as the object attached to the gate now no longer has collision with it. My guess here is that the game considers them the same object and disables it. So, slowly but surely, we can phase each balloon. Okay, it's a little jank, but we can eventually free this starite completely and move on to 5-4, where we can once again put this trick to good use. This time we don't have balloons to push the starite through, so we have to make it roll by manipulating the rope's connection points. Whew, that was fun. Anyways, 5-5, 5-6, 5-7 are all impossible because they are underwater. I don't know what I was setting up on 5-8, but I eventually gave up in order to work on 5-9. Triggering this tripwire will cause these rocks to fall and blow up the starite, but slowly lowering the rocks one by one seemed to be working well. At this point, I only really needed one more level to get this done, so when I accidentally blew it up, I went to check 5-10 and 5-11 before I committed to it. 5-10 is underwater, but 5-11 had a starite guarded by 2 gates. It takes a lot of finagling to get the rope to work in tight spaces, but I was able to get it to phase through both gates without too much trouble. With all the levels I had just beaten, I had made just enough Allers to unlock World 10. Now, we don't need to worry about completing as many puzzles as we can, we just need to get to 10-11. I opted to go for the action levels because 10-11 puzzle actually requires you to summon a starite to complete it, which would mean even if we could get there, we'd need an additional word right at the end. But 10-1 action was not going to be easy. In this level, triggering this tripwire will send the starite falling into the spike pit. You're usually supposed to use these connection points on the wall to build something to catch it and yourself, but our only building materials here are ropes and wedding cakes. One thing I quickly did was use rope gate so it wouldn't fall, but I still needed a way to get to it. My first idea was to dangle 3 ropes from the dangling starite so that I could hopefully grab onto it as I fell. It was kind of janky and really lagging the game, so I tried exploring some other options. I messed around a bit with wedding cakes. While they could stand on spikes, these spike balls were not having it. I eventually decided to try catching myself by attaching a rope to the wall and an upside down wedding cake to the rope to use as a platform. Nothing was really working here for me. I was on this level trying everything I could think of until... What the fuck? Okay. I'll take it. Yeah, I got really lucky. I don't even really know what happened because it wasn't on screen, but I guess when I misclicked, I somehow perfectly timed dropping the starite with Maxwell falling. And actually, it was all planned. I'm a god gamer. Getting through 10-1 was a relief because we had no other options. At least now we can pick which levels we want to attempt. I randomly went for 10-4 and it worked out because we could easily set up rope gate to skip the entire puzzle. The next level I checked, 10-7, did not really go the same. While the starite was near a slope that we could potentially roll it down, this one did not cooperate with me very much. I went back to 10-6 and this one felt potentially doable. We were attached by a rope to the ceiling while the starite was as well, but in a cage. What I wanted to do was attach a rope to the cage disconnect my rope, and then climb the cage rope. The problem with that is that we aren't connected to the rope is connected to our hat. Sure, we can take off the hat normally, but if I try to take off the hat while holding a rope, Maxwell always prioritizes dropping our rope. So this safe strat of going from rope to rope wasn't really an option. Wedding cakes didn't seem like they'd be very helpful here either. Does that mean it's time? Is it time for you to prove yourself? New plan, ropes out of here, wedding cakes not a chance. All we need is good old reliable. Spawn the gun, hold to the right as much as we can before disconnecting, fall into the lava, hold right to get under the cage, grab that gun quickly, and take the shot. It turns out we might have needed you after all, gun. We actually didn't. 10-5 could have easily been solved by rope gate, but come on man, that lava gun shit was so much more hype. And 10-11 might look a little intimidating, but it's actually a victory lap in disguise. Nothing is needed here. And just like that, we were able to beat Scribblenauts with only 3 items. This run was a ton of fun. But is that really the best we can do? I mean, there's just something that really bothered me about this run. Do you remember when we stuffed that kid in a vending machine? I mean, yeah, that's funny, but if we can stuff kids in there, what else can we do? Well, it turns out just about anything we can attach a rope to. There are some exceptions like large creatures and buildings, but it seems like a very consistent thing. Normally in Scribblenauts, you can only move items you've summoned, which makes sense because then you could just move any obstacles out of your way or move the star right to your spawn. But what if you summon a container, then put a naturally spawning item inside of it? You can move that container. So hypothetically, if we summon our own vending machine and use a rope to put the starite in, yeah, we can invalidate a lot of the game like this. This is cool and all, but there's just one more problem, the tutorial. Sure, we can grab the starite on the high ledge, no problem, but we still need a food item for the chef. If we can't get past that, then we'll just be back at 3 items anyway. Albeit a much less janky and more consistently useful 3 items, but it doesn't change our answer. It seems like because of this chef, Scribblenauts is doomed to a 3-item fate. But there's a reason that the vending machine piqued my interest. I mean, what do you think is inside of one? That's right. This entire run hinges on the fact that a vending machine spawns a single chocolate bar. That gets us past the chef in the tutorial and in 1-1, but unfortunately our rope does not make the cut. I thought maybe the firefighter would take it, but he didn't. Luckily, handcuffs in this game are functionally a very tiny rope, which might even make maneuvering in small spaces a lot easier. So, with a new file named Handcuffs, I set off once more to try to beat Scribblenauts with only 2 items. Since we've been through the game once, and a lot of this run will be the same vending machine glitch shenanigans, I'll only go into detail about any new or interesting levels we encounter. In the action section, 1-1, 2, 3, and 4 go about how you'd expect, but 1-5, I don't really know what I was cooking. 1-6 is a rope gate moment, but with handcuffs, so I guess cuff gate. 1-7, 9, and 10 are all easily vendable, and we can employ a similar 1-11 strategy that we did in our first run using vending machines instead of cakes. 1-1 puzzle just requires the chocolate and handcuffs. 1-2, we arrest a butterfly. I thought I was cooking on 1-3, hoping I could abduct this child off of his bicycle, then use it to go off the ramp, but they are a package deal it seems. You might actually be able to launch yourself by emptying the vending machine, but I didn't mess around with that too much because I didn't think I needed to. 1-6, we can actually cuff the cat into the house and then empty the house. 1-7, unfortunately trees cannot be put in vending machines. 1-8 is still completable without summons. 1-9, we clearly do not cheat once again. 1-10 has no summons, and 1-11 is now actually doable as we can get this hard to reach flower with the vending machine, and grab the water flower with a handcuff chain. In this run, I actually opted to go for World 4, as we wouldn't be able to get the Starlight in 3-1 action, because we don't have a way to break the ice at the beginning of the level. 4-1 action is a quick bend. 4-2 action is so frustratingly close to being doable. The Starlight is lying in the open, which should make it an easy vend candidate. But this temple in the back actually prevents us from placing the vending machine close enough. Well, okay, what if we actually tried playing this level? Let's stuff the enemies into vending machines. These enemies are immune to handcuffs. I haven't seen any other enemies that do this. It's like this level was made to specifically spite this run. Anyways, 4-3, 4-4, 4-6, 4-7, 4-8, and 4-9 are all quick bends. 4-10 has you race this fuck-ass leprechaun. This guy literally cheats. Like, watch him teleport. This level might be possible if you're really quick and able to bend either the Starlight or the leprechaun before he finishes, but this feels way too precise, and I am not good at video games. 4-1 puzzle is awesome because you have to reunite this baby duck with its family. Seems like a simple job for a vending machine. What's cool about this level though is that the star spawns the second you reunite them, which means that anything that happens after that is not our problem. While the unicorn in 4-3 is too big to get vended, we can put it under arrest. 4-5 removed any doubt in my mind that babies aren't safe from vending machines. 4-7 is a classic Sisyphus moment using handcuffs. 4-9 we have to reunite these two with a classic vend. The only reason I'm talking about this level is because the Starlight annoyingly spawns over the water, so if it sinks to the bottom while the NPCs are in there, it is really annoying to get it out. And in 4-11, we need to get this king to the castle. Unfortunately, we have no way to get up there to free him from the vending machine. But luckily enough, the Starlight still spawns if we free him underneath the castle. And then we can get a classic vend on the star. After finishing every level we could in World 4, we were at roughly 19.5k. So I decided to unlock World 2 to clean up the rest of the Allers because it is the cheapest. The only problem with World 2 was 2-1 puzzle. While in our other run we could break this pinata with a gun quite easily, in this run we don't have anything to deal damage with. But if we want to get to 25,000 Allers, this is our only chance, because World 3 is way less doable. I tried dropping vending machines on it, trying to jump on it weird, but nothing seemed to work. I almost gave up all hope on this run until I saw something. If you throw the present that spawns in the level at the pinata, particles come out. I was pretty sure that meant it was taking damage, but there was also no real indication for how much health the pinata has. This was our only shot though, so I threw that present at the pinata 19 consecutive times, and on the 20th throw, I sighed in relief that the run was still alive. 2-2 wants us to feed the trick-or-treaters so we get a chocolate bar from our vending machine. And the rest of these levels are impossible. Yeah, when I checked the routing for this world, I didn't do a great job. I just saw that I could get past 2-1 and assumed I would be able to figure it out when I actually did the run. 2-3 wants us to spawn an apple for this teacher. 2-4 wants us to spawn glasses for this eye exam. 2-5 wants us to spawn clothes on this mannequin. 2-6 wants us to score a goal on this goalie and chocolate bars do not count. And 2-7 needs us to clean up this spill, which in my previous run I would be able to shoot with a gun for some reason, but in this run I cannot handcuff the spill to vend it. So that leaves us with the action levels, needing roughly 6,000 more Allers. Luckily 2-1 doesn't require any summons because the level spawns with a shovel, so we can just vend the enemies out of our way and dig to the Starlight with no issue. 2-2 might look precarious, but luckily the TNT could hold the weight of an entire vending machine. While 2-3 is an easy vend, I do want to say that when I routed this world for the other run, I had a much funnier solution. In this level, you have to steal the Starlight without killing any security guards. My first thought was to put this security guard to sleep by feeding him 3 wedding cakes, but then I realized there was a camera that would activate this gate. So I decided to tie one end of a rope to the Starlight and the other end to the guard, and then I aggroed him and had him bring it to me. Yeah, this run isn't as cool, but it's optimal, so it has to be done. Wait, actually no, 2-4 is pretty cool. Check this out. The Starlight is in too tight a space to place a vending machine. And by virtue of the gate being above it, we have no way to actually cuff gate here. I mean, we could try to beat this level normally, but we unfortunately do not have the mobility to even attempt it. So what do? Well, remember when I said we could put pretty much anything in the vending machine? Apparently that includes levers that open progression gates. We can quite literally rip this lever out of the ground, bring it straight to us, and it still works. So we can grab the starite no problem. 2-5 cannot be vended because the starite is already attached to a rope. 2-6 is an easy vend or a cheeky cuff gate if you're feeling bold. 2-8 is an easy vend, and completing 2-9 with another easy vend gets us $25,000 to get to World 10. I did 2-11 for fun because it was such an easy vend. And with that, we can easily cruise through World 10. 10-1 is an easy vend, 10-4 is a quick cuff gate, and 10-7 is another easy vend, which gets us to 10-11 where we don't need any summons at all. And just like that, Scribblenauts can be completed with only 2 items. I think this time there is not much room to improve this, as even if there is a super OP item that can finish enough puzzles by itself, it would need to be food, or spawn food to get past the tutorial. I want you to know that after I wrote that line and essentially finished this 10+ page script, that I decided to look up items in Scribblenauts that can spawn other items. And when I tell you, I almost had a breakdown because I found out that Santa Claus has a 27 item loot table. I am not exaggerating. Santa Claus can spawn candy canes, which can clear the chef tutorial. He can spawn moon shoes, which clears the action tutorial, and he could spawn a kitten, which for some reason is enough for the firefighter in 1-1 puzzle. The items he spawns are mostly junk, but he does spawn a few items with utility. Luckily though, before I dove too deep into this rabbit hole of a miserable run based entirely on Santa 1 out of 27 RNG, I realized that there really doesn't seem to be a way to beat 10-1 action with him. I tried spawning a bunch of items for Jank, and that didn't really do much. And as far as I tested, none of the items that he spawns could withstand the spike balls at the bottom. Whew. As far as I'm aware, 2 is the least amount of items required to complete a run of Scribblenauts. If anyone is able to find that one magical item that can do it all, or can manage to beat 10-1 with only Santa Claus, please let me know in the comments below. I would actually be super interested to see how people figure out a better route. Also, let me know if you want to see me try other Scribblenauts games, or if you actually want to see me tackle minimum words in a 100% run. I would actually be super excited to do another Scribblenauts video. This one was a ton of fun. If you made it this far, then you owe me the like and sub at this point. Come on! I want to give a big thanks to Soap Agent again. He was super helpful with pretty much anything I asked him. He actually made his own run of this challenge and was able to complete the game with only 3 items, mainly because the vending machine glitch only works on the launch version of Scribblenauts, while most speedruns will use the Scribblenauts collection. But his 3 items were much more optimal than mine. The run has some super cool strats that I didn't even go over here, and way better execution, so I'll link it for anyone who's interested. That's it from me. Goodbye.